She creates noise. She creates noise. She's moving through the world with a powerful voice. She creates noise. She creates. She creates noise. She creates noise.
Hi, you're listening to Sarah DeGurney, and welcome to She Creates Noise, a podcast about women who make the music business run, coming to you from New York City. Now, if you're not familiar with me, here's a little background. I'm a songwriter, producer, manager, educator, and mentor to many artists. I've written platinum-selling songs, had tracks on Grammy-nominated records, and released music on both major and independent labels. I was a jazz singer, a jingle singer, and a pop artist. I've had record deals, toured with big bands, and performed at music festivals across US, Europe, and Asia. More recently, my focus has been on writing with and developing young talent. In the coming weeks, I'll be pulling back the curtain on the music industry's female changemakers, women who have reshaped the business in profound ways. My goal here is to help listeners better understand how the music business really works, and just how instrumental women behind the scenes have been. You'll hear from both sides of the desk: artists, producers, managers, label executives, lawyers, women making things happen, often without the spotlight on them. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now let's dive in.
She creates noise.
Today's guest is Shira Gans. Now, Shira Gans is a nationally recognized social impact strategist and currently the Senior Executive Director for Policy and Programs at the New York City Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment. She's led pioneering initiatives that promote equity, opportunity, and sustainability across entertainment, government, and finance, including New York City's $12 million music industry social impact strategy. She founded New York is Music Month and a $10 million grant program for women-led entertainment projects. Her work also includes creating the New York City Office of Nightlife, advancing green film practices, and helping over 12,000 unbanked New Yorkers gain access to banking. A City and State 40 Under 40 rising star, she's been featured in the New York Times, Forbes, Variety, and Billboard. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about how she came to this interesting role at the mayor's office and about New York is Music Month, which is going on right now, and there are lots of events to check out. We'll put a link in the show notes, so please come to the events and see some great music this month in New York City. Shira, it's really great to have you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Sarah. Happy to be here.
Now, you've described yourself as someone driven to address inequality. You've had a very interesting background. You've done a lot of cool different things. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey? I know you've done work in prison reform, and now you're in the entertainment office for the mayor's office. Can you tell us a little bit about that very interesting journey?
Sure, thanks. So that journey, I guess, started after college. And my drive professionally really was always to address social issues and to try to focus in on issues that to me were at the center of a Venn diagram of kind of pressing needs and concerns in society. And I was very drawn to the issues around prisoner rights, and that to me, they seem to be at the center of issues around sort of botched drug policy, tensions between rural and urban areas, systemic racism through our justice system, and the strange kind of infiltration of manufacturing and corporate jobs into prisons, actually. So I started my career. I moved from being an East Coaster out to San Francisco, where I monitored mental health care in California prisons.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was definitely a pretty eye-opening job that was also, it was like a mix of really heavy subject matter that was also kind of rote in a way and sort of boring. There's a lot of corresponding with mentally ill inmates and kind of having this formulaic responses because there was only so much we could do. And then after that, I realized my aspirations at first had been to be a national prison expert, but that involves spending a lot of time in prisons and places where prisons are, which actually is not really a great way. I think I found that I wanted to spend my time. I didn't think I was up for the task. So I became a federal investigator at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, where I investigated claims of employment discrimination. I think those experiences both taught me a lot about kind of empathy and understanding, people's subjective experience. There's not necessarily like an objective reality of who's right or wrong in a situation or one way to view it. But I also realized that doing kind of casework was probably not my calling. So I got a graduate degree at UC Berkeley in public policy and moved to New York City after, where I've been ever since, and have mostly just worked in city government. I worked at the budget office. I did food policy and financial inclusion work for Scott Stringer when he was borough president. I worked at the Federal Reserve Bank doing financial inclusion work and community development for small businesses. And then I was the policy director for the city's Consumer Protection Agency, working for Commissioner Julie Menon, who was then reappointed to the mayor's office of media and entertainment. And she asked me if I would go with her. And at first my thought was kind of, well, why would I do that? I do sort of these important, weighty things. And then I was kind of like, why wouldn't I do that? That sounds really fun and like a new and interesting frontier.
A lot lighter, too. A lot lighter.
Yeah, a lot lighter. Consumer protection in New York City isn't necessarily as daunting as, say, prisoner rights or employment discrimination, but it's really pretty in the weeds of city regulatory framework.
Impressive.
So anyway, I came over to this agency, which we refer to as MOME, because the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment. It's a little bit of a mouthful.
I like that, MOME. Okay.
Yeah. And that's kind of a journey to get here. So it was pretty circuitous. I don't think I would have ever thought at the beginning of that journey that I would have spent, this is the longest job I've had. I've been here for about 9 years, that it would be doing music industry and entertainment industry work. But I guess you never really know where things are going to take.
Absolutely. And it's great to have you because I see you around all the events. You're very present and doing a lot of great things for us. You've helped foster a strong connection between government and the arts. And is this something completely new for the city of New York, bringing the arts together with government like this?
It's new for the city, for arts in general. The city has the Department of Cultural Affairs, which is a granting agency that has, I don't want to misquote it, but it's several $100 million budget, and it supports everything from Lincoln Center to the Met to the Museum of Natural History, as well as numerous arts nonprofits.
It makes it, but the music business is kind of a new and groovier thing.
Indeed. So before I had this role, there was no person or agency in city government whose job it was to support the music industry. So I think we look at it a little more from an economic development business lens. And of course, for something like the music industry, you can't really, the art side and the business side are not necessarily distinct, but it's less of a focus just on art for art's sake and more of cultivating the creative sectors that are critical to New York City's economy.
Because I read somewhere that it's like $21 billion that the music industry brings in.
That was actually one of the first things I did when I started the role. Was we commissioned a music economic impact study looking at the role of the industry in New York City. And now it's a decade old. So it's definitely on my agenda to try to secure funding to redo it. But what we found was that the industry overall supported 21 billion in economic output, 60,000 jobs, and 5 billion in wages. So it's not just about, of course, music is a driver of culture, but it's also a big business for New York.
That's great to hear because so many people, I think have left New York City from the music business. They've gone to Nashville and LA, and we're trying to bring them back. And
they're still here.
We're here. We're hanging on. It's tough. I mean, I did a song camp during COVID, which was trying to tell everyone we are here. So I had it was called Songs Across the Water. I had a lot of people from all over the world working with New York writers. And, I think it did raise a little bit of awareness, trying to get them to stop flying over us when they're coming from foreign countries.
She creates noise.
Now, one of the things I really want to talk about is how you are the founder of one of the most exciting initiatives, which is Music Month. And this is a terrific idea. How did you come up with that? And can you tell us what kind of programs it offers, and also maybe give us a sense of what we should keep our eyes open for coming up in the month of June, because this is when it will air?
The New York Music Month is the city's official music industry festival. It happens the entire month of June. And that's something that I created and founded in 2017. And that really came out of a conversation. I like to give him credit with Justin Clifowitz, who was the head of Downtown Music Publishing at the time. That's what the company was. And Justin's always been a big advocate for New York City as a music city. And when I started this role, as we discussed, I had no background in music. I wouldn't even say at the time music was a driving force in my life personally. Like everyone likes music, right? But I wasn't going out every night to shows or so I really had to kind of tap my own network of people who I had a good friend from when I lived in San Francisco who worked at In Grooves, and she kind of connected me to some folks, and everyone was just like, you have to talk to Justin. So we had a meeting, and he was saying, the industry does so much in June. There's all these festivals, there's award shows, there's conferences. Can't the city do something to recognize that? And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's make June New York Music Month. And so it started pretty small. And the idea originally was just to kind of reflect and honor all the economic and cultural activity the industry brings to New York during June. And then around the margins, kind of do our own thing. So we started this conference with NYU at the Steinhardt Music Business Program. And maybe I had like 10 events. I don't know. And then year over year, it's kind of been really exciting to see it become its own thing. So the conference has grown. This year it's June 3rd. It's going to be at NYU Skirball now. This will be the second year. So that's an 850 capacity room with like a real stage. It's a beautiful venue. And we have around 40 speakers who kind of dive into all different aspects of the industry. And I try to keep it a fast day. So we have these 5-minute kind of TED Talks, which usually feature folks working on a social impact component of the industry. This year we have someone from Carnegie Hall. I'm having someone from ACLU who come to discuss the importance of how do you protect freedom of expression in the moment that we're in now. And then we have fireside chats and panels looking more at industry business topics. So we have a really cool one on AI. We're going to have one on music and gaming. And then the rest of the month is both performances and talks that are really just a collaboration between folks in the industry and our office, specifically myself. So people kind of approach me with an idea, like, well, I've always wanted to talk about this topic, or I thought it would be really interesting if we did something on X. And then I work with them collaboratively to shape that idea, make it kind of right for the Music Month audience. I'm able to give, I have budget for the program, so I want to make sure that everyone's paid, particularly anyone who performs. No one's getting rich off of Music Month, but I don't want anyone to come out in the red. So it's always something that feels collaborative and I think to fuel the ecosystem.
With the Music Month things, the events you go, is it mostly like students that are showing up to Skirball Center?
No.
Or industry people? Or?
It's all industry folks, really. I'd say it runs the gamut from people who are emerging artists or early stage career, but there's really people who are pretty senior in the industry because we're able, since it's really unique. There's no other city that does anything like this.
I've attended a lot of these things, but I haven't been to the Skirball Center. That I need to go to.
We should come June 3rd.
Okay, I'm going to do that.
The conference is about at least, the last time we did a survey of the people who attended, I would say at least 60% of the people in the room have been working in the industry for 10 or more years. So it's definitely not students, though students are welcome, of course. But it's a professional industry conference, but it's interesting because it's not segmented the way a lot of other conferences are. It's not just about sync, or it's not just about
Publishing.
indie labels. It's like everything. But so the events themselves which would be they're kind of these 4 verticals for Music Month. There's the conference, there's talks, there's performances, and then we underwrite free rehearsal space.
Cool.
So for the talks, like this year overall, between performances and talks, we're going to have almost 60 events, I think, in partnership with 55 different industry partners. And those range from kind of smaller independent companies up to like Downtown or Empire or UAA, companies who want to give back, who want to participate, who want to give a platform for their teams or their artists, and really just share information about either, there's one event, this woman, Sherry Hugh, who started Water Music that looks at AI and the tech ecosystem in New York for music. She's going to do an event on kind of like where tech investment for music stands right now in the city. So it's something like that that's a little more developed or thought leadership to things that are like, hey, here's a basic event on understanding your merch strategy. So it really runs from like a kind of 101 to diving more into interesting topics. Or Rock Nation School at LIU is going to do some interesting like fireside chats. So it really is a very diverse lineup. And then on the performance side, there's so many amazing festivals that we don't want to compete with. So we partner with different curators and labels and folks to create a platform for emerging artists, because I think that can be a hard thing in New York.
Because Gov Ball is June, right? For example.
Yeah, Gov Ball, Summer Stage kicks off, Celebrate Brooklyn kicks off out in Forest Hill. Like they have a whole lineup for the summer. Coney Island, there's a big stadium there, has a whole lineup. So there's just a ton of stuff going on. Little Island, which is a great outdoor space on the river, has a lineup. So the goal is never to compete with anything that's
Yes, it's to support it and to also give up and coming artists an opportunity.
yeah, and to give folks who are in the like, I'm not someone who I think should be curating live music. No one wants like, my music taste. That's not the role of city government or someone in my role, but I can empower people who are working with emerging artists to have a space and some money so that people can perform, can get in front of an audience, can get paid for their time. I heard someone once say, people can die of exposure. Like, I don't like I never want someone to perform and not get paid, because I want us to value art.
That's great. And actually, I heard on another interview you did, you have very cool music taste. So don't be so, yeah, don't be so shy.
Thanks. It's definitely thanks to people I met in the industry, and sometimes weirdly my Peloton. But mostly it's just like, one of the things I like about the music industry work is it doesn't matter how senior the person is I'm meeting, they're always excited to talk about a new band they're into or someone they're listening to. So I'm always keeping this little list on my phone of like, okay, I'm going to go home and I'm going to check out that artist or that band.
She creates noise.
And I know you have a son. Is he a big music fan?
I do have a son. He is a big music fan. He likes to listen to, he's really into Kendrick Lamar and some music that's probably not appropriate. And he knows when it's like the radio edit. He'll be like, why? Like, where's the bad words? I want the version with the bad words. Like, so we have discussions about like, okay, this is art and they can use those words and that's artistic expression. So I'm not going to censor it, but you can't say those words.
Right.
So we have those conversations a lot. He has a pretty diverse music taste too. He was really into Queen for a while. I mean, so yeah, we listen to music together.
That's great. Yeah, I know it keeps us young to have young people around showing us what's cool.
He's pretty young.
Yeah. Now, I want to make at the end of this, I'm going to ask to, make sure that we have a list. We'll get some links to what's going on in Music Month. And I know you're busy, so I'm trying to go down the list of all the things I wanted to talk about. Now, you were recently recognized in Variety's Power of Women New York Impact List. From your perspective, what unique challenges and opportunities do women in media and entertainment face today?
Yeah, I think the challenges that women face in media and entertainment probably aren't so distinct from the challenges that women face in general, which I think, are multifaceted. One would just be the basics of, do you have a seat at the table? Are you included? So I like to look at Annenberg, USC Annenberg Center puts out annually reports looking at gender representation across media and entertainment. So they have one, it's like inclusion in the studio, and they look at the Billboard Top 100 every year. So this year is like only 6% of producers on those songs were women. And they looked over more than a decade of doing the study in 1,000 songs. The ratio of male to female producers on those songs was 27-1. So, you might be seeing more female artists, and those numbers I think are getting better. But in terms of in the studio or in the boardroom, those numbers don't look great. And then I think there's more, like subtle things, which are, I think at this moment, in time, like there's a lot of talk around authenticity. And I think one of the ways you can connect professionally or through social media channels, if that's the way you need to message, is by being authentic. But there's not really a lot of space for women to truly be authentic, I think, with different ideas about how women should behave or what's socially acceptable, and sort of this constant, I think, calculus that women in position of power are making about how to create space for yourself, how to be taken seriously, but also how not to be sort of dinged for the behaviors that might advance men's careers, but probably aren't going to help you out, or just, and this probably is not just for women, like learning to sort of be okay with people not liking you. And I think that's a little more challenging for women because we're kind of raised to be people pleasers or to be caretakers. So I don't think I'm saying anything particularly new, but I know that that's, for me in government, I think those issues are sort of compounded because there's ideas about how people in government behave, or, there's a lot of rules and bureaucracy and ideas about what's acceptable or not acceptable. And then that's compounded by being a woman. And then, you have to kind of pick and choose which things you're going to toe the line on and which things you're going to be like, oh, well.
Right. Well, I mean, you seem to have sailed through all these issues very, very beautifully, because I mean, you're doing great. You're doing so much, and I never I don't get a sense of any complaint or anything from you. You're just doing what you do, and it's just working. I think you're confident.
That's part of
Yeah.
part of the sound, right?
Yep.
I mean, I could complain, but I wouldn't help me out. And I think, the other thing that gets talked about some, but I think is a challenge that I definitely face, especially, I mean, I didn't go into public service because I wanted to be like one of the world's richest people, but there is a different pay scale when you're in the public sector. And part of, I think, and kind of you mentioned, I think part of the way you build trust and you connect with folks is that you have to show up. And so a lot of the showing up is at night. And if you're a parent, especially like I'm a single parent, then that can create a real challenge. And so that's not something I think people talk about. And I think the lack of discussion around that and what that means, even if you're not a single parent, like what happens if you need to be at an event every night and you have a kid.
Good babysitters. But yeah, no, I totally get it. Okay. Being a single parent, yep.
Like my son hates Music Month. He's like, oh, that's the month you abandon your kid. like I guess that's one of the things I do during that month.
For a very worthy cause. Now, there's also the $10 million fund that was created to support women in music. Can you tell us a little about that and how it's being implemented?
It's actually for women in music, media, and theater. So when we first created the fund, it was focused on film, television, and theater.
Okay.
And the idea originally behind it, there's actually more research out of Annenberg, was that for women in film, they would kind of get close to finishing a project, and then because they don't have the same networks or access to capital as men, they would be, $20,000, $50,000 out from the money they needed, and they wouldn't be able to complete it. So we created sort of a finishing fund. It was the first of its kind in the country for a local government to do that. And then in the second year, I added music to it. So we did do 5 rounds. It was 10 million. I have some of the stats here that I could find that I pulled together. So for music, over the 5 cycles, we awarded just a little less than $1.3 million to 118 projects.
Wow.
And we did that in 2 categories, like the classical, experimental, jazz, new music, which is typically, I think, what gets grants. And that was 50 projects. But we also, it was important to me, we added a general category. So that was everything from like pop to hip hop to electronic music. And that was 68 projects.
That's great. Yes, it's true that jazz and classical do tend to get more funding. Yeah.
Yeah. It was important for me that there was popular music was part of that.
Cool. And is that something, I think you said there's only there's one more year of that, or?
No, we issued our last round.
We did that.
So we did 5 rounds.
Okay.
But hopefully we're going to be doing an evaluation of it and a white paper so that other cities can kind of look at it and see what the lessons are that we learned. There were some challenges around music where for the other categories, say for a film, it's like, okay, you finished your film, and then did you get into a film festival? Did somebody buy your, like the film and pick it up for distribution? Whereas for music, okay, we helped you. The funds were for a new album or EP or for a video for yet to be released work. And so you did that, but then, people are releasing
Right.
millions of songs a day.
Yep.
So how yeah, so how do we really gauge if that was a success, if we're giving them the support that they needed to really take that music that they created and then make sure that it could be monetized and heard and create like revenue streams for them. So
What was an
I'm not sure
average
we
budget for like the music side? Let's say someone was trying to do an EP. What would be the average?
the grants could go up to
Okay.
$20,000. So I don't actually have insight into whether or not, I assume most people asked for that amount. For film, it was a little different. Those went up to 50 grand. People didn't always ask for the total amount. So yeah, those were the grant
I mean,
sizes.
it's great, but of course, it does cost more to then get promotion teams and to get more people involved, to get the PR, et cetera, to have it released. But it's a great
Yeah.
start. That's really cool. What advice would you give people who would like to be in your area, who do something like what you do? They're young listeners, I'm sure there are. How do people prepare for this kind of a field? Either serving in policy, partnership, working in media and entertainment, in the type of capacity that you have.
Well, not to discourage it. There aren't really that many roles like what I do. There's like a few of us around the country and the world who kind of have these music policy jobs. I think what I found in doing this work is, and across my career, that the things that I found the most gratifying, the most motivating and successful have been public-private partnerships. So I think there really is a desire on the part of industry to give back and to be connected and also to be recognized by government. And so I think those desires really set the table for partnerships. And I think there's also just like a lot of misunderstanding. I mean, I still don't totally understand the music industry. It's really interesting and
Neither do I.
complicated. Yeah. And but I'm always learning about it. And I think, government is oh, sorry, New York noise. It was like there's a helicopter in my apartment.
No,
Um,
didn't hear it. There's been all kinds of sirens going around here too.
uh, yeah, I think that I think a lot of opportunity for creativity and to also think about music as a vehicle, not just for economic development or creative expression, but for a way to engage youth, for a way to revitalize a neighborhood and to bring kind of a sense of community and value um, that has kind of components that can't always be quantified in economic terms. And I think there's some folks like these guys at Sound Diplomacy, which is an organization that looks at music cities, and they've started doing social impact assessments with dollar values associated, looking at what a music project can bring to a city. So I think, opening up your mind about how do you view these projects? Who do you think can be at the table? Like one project we did was to help save Avatar Studios was on the market. It was probably going to become condos. And I was able to work with Berklee College of Music, who wanted to be in New York, with our Economic Development Corporation, someone who is a board member at Berklee and also a musician himself. And he wanted to put in some funding on Berklee's behalf. And so I got the city to put in $6 million.
That's a great
They
thing.
put the rest. Yeah, now it's
Fantastic.
Power Station at Berklee NYC. We still have the studio. Broadway cast albums are recorded there. Berklee NYC is really supportive of the ecosystem here. They work with the Department of Education to help build out programming there. So I think, thinking about institutions like educational institutions, government, and industry working together, I think you can do a lot of cool things. And I guess the thing I'd say now at this moment in time is I still believe that government is a vehicle for positive change. And it's important for people, who care about society and about fostering a kind of environment where creativity can flourish, to be mindful of what happens in government and to be engaged. And even if you're not going to go work for the government, government's supposed to be responsive to you. So I think you never really know what can happen if you don't know who represents you or what the agencies are that are supposed to support your industry. So kind of thinking to build those bridges is really important.
And you've created such an interesting role that's so unique and incredibly helpful to the New York ecosystem, which is
Yeah, I'd say like one thing that I've found really gratifying and cool about Music Month is beyond all the events we do, is that it's really just been, I've seen all these connections be made. And I was at this event the other day and I met someone who knew about Music Month who was a lot younger. And she was like, oh, you created a third space, which is this idea of like this sort of challenge in our culture of the lack of third spaces, like libraries or coffee shop or places that people come together that aren't work or home. And that I had found that there are a lot of people who feel passionate about music, either because they're artists or they're fans, and there's community around that. But the industry itself feels siloed or maybe not as inclusive. And through Music Month, people have found a way that's like they're welcome because the government's doing it. It's free. It's open. And then all these connections have been made. So I've seen people get jobs. I've seen people collaborate on albums and other projects and always be like, oh, that's cool. I know that person. And they're like, yeah, I know. I met them because of a Music Month event.
It's great
And so
networking.
that's really, yeah, fun and gratifying to see because I didn't expect that necessarily.
Yeah, it's great. Shira, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insight. It's exciting to see and hear how New York is so actively shaping the future of media and how you're doing so much. I definitely want to get some links for what the New York Music Month looks like. And, I'll talk to you more about how to do that and I'll put it on the podcast. But this will be airing early June, everyone. So I want people to know about it and go to the events and look for Shira. She'll probably be in a lot of them.
I'll say we redid the brand and the website this year. So in addition to curating and producing like the 60 events, we've launched a new website with a whole new look and feel, which is both cooler, but also I think it's easier to access all the content and see everything that's going on. And if you're a listener and you own a venue or you produce a music event, we also have an Around the City calendar where you can submit your event that's happening in June and we post it for free. So folks can see not just our events for Music Month, but also everything else happening.
That's great.
She creates noise.
So Shira, beyond Music Month, is there anything else that you'd like to highlight?
Thanks for asking. I've been excited about something I announced last year at Music Month, which is that our office is seed funding a music business degree at Brooklyn College, which is a CUNY. So that will be the first public music business degree available in the 5 boroughs. And the minor is going to launch next fall. And then the following fall, the major will be available too. And it's a collaboration between the business school there and the liberal arts college. And we're really going to be leaning in on the industry to get engaged to kind of create experiential learning for kids who want to have internships or want to have capstone projects, for experts in the industry to come and be guest lecturers. We're hoping there'll be like a music festival that the kids can produce and a radio station and things like that. So I think it's going to be really exciting. And I think, music is so diverse and New York City is so diverse, and the CUNY system is such a great way to create a pathway that's accessible and kind of reflect where a lot of the sounds of music come from and get those kind of onto the business side. So we're excited about it. And I think it's going to be really cool.
It's great. And it's great to have another music business program in the city also.
Yes, of course. NYU is such an amazing program, such an anchor for the city, but going to a university like NYU is not always attainable for people either academically or financially or for all sorts of reasons. It's such a preeminent institution and challenging to get into. So it's just great to have a public option too. We see it as a supplement and hopefully a partnership with NYU and the other programs in the city.
That's great. Well, they all kind of will be supportive to each other because it's all doing the same kind of thing.
Yeah, and the industry is growing. So hopefully the more trained folks we can get, the more New York becomes more and more of a music city, and we don't see that people go elsewhere, which I don't think they're doing anyway. I mean, I know they are, but I still think New York is the best music city in the world, and there's thousands of people working on it here. So
absolutely. That's great. Thank you again, Shira.
Thank you.
She creates noise.
I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Heard City, the premier audio post-production company servicing the advertising, motion picture, and television industries right here in NYC. I'd also like to thank Antello, aka XOAN, for singing the She Creates Noise theme that I wrote. Thanks for listening to She Creates Noise. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and share. I want to thank the team here, Blair Reinley, Yelena Stavanovich, Emily Wilson, and the Master of Engineering and Grammy-winning Cooper Anderson. We'll see you next time.
She creates noise. 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 We hear her voice. She creates noise.